Hospital in Puttaparthi. This was in the year 1991. He's a visiting faculty to Swami's Institute of Higher Learning and is a contributing author to Radio Sai's monthly Heart to Heart journal. He also helps run the Prashanti Center at Hartford in Connecticut, and this project was blessed by Swami in 2002. He's here to talk to us about his spiritual journey and also give a brief overview of his upcoming workshop entitled Deep Awareness. So please let us give a warm welcome to Brother Jatin Desai.
Very, very delighted to be with you. Can you hear me okay? No. Yeah? No?
Can you hear? No.
No? Okay. I'll speak a little closer. How's that? Is that better?
Better.
Much better. How fortunate. How fortunate. How fortunate. Those beautiful bhajans. I don't get an opportunity to be with such a large congregation other than Puttaparthi. So you are all very, very lucky and so fortunate to have an opportunity like this to be together. You know, Swami says everything is his blessing. We all have been journeying for not just this entire lifetime to have come to his divine feet, but generations and lifetimes. We've been given this opportunity to know him. He's taken this divine avatar, this form, so we can understand a little bit of what he's saying. How fortunate that we know him. We have heard of him. We see him. We can touch him. We can sing with him. We can hear him. How fortunate. It's like being in the Olympics. It takes a lifetime of practice. And then there's that race. There's that moment that you have to make and cross that line. That's what we've been doing. That's what you have been doing. Not only this lifetime. Do you understand how fortunate we are? You've been practicing for thousands of lives. You have ran fast. You've been practicing hard. And finally the moment has come for that final race. And he's given you that opportunity to be in that race. Not all athletes can run. Not all athletes can compete in the Olympics. You can. You have been chosen. You have been picked. You have been graced to finally cross the line. And not alone. He's here. He's with us to hold us together and cross the line with us. What a fortunate opportunity. Isn't it? Do you feel that way?
Yes.
Yes. Not everyone has been given this opportunity. Just to know him, do you know how lucky you are? Right? So we know all of this. And I'm not sure really what I can share. I'm not even sure why he sent me here. But if he tells me to turn right, I turn right. If he tells me to turn left, I turn left. If he tells me to sleep, I sleep. If he tells me to eat, I eat. So I'm here. He's allowed me to come here just in the nick of time. Made through that traffic from Connecticut. So he wanted me to be here, I guess. And I am so delighted to be with you all. Because he's told me that I'm not just here to enjoy life. I'm here to be in his mission. For you to be in his mission. To know him is to be in his mission. To know him is to be in his mission. You cannot be in his mission by raising hands. To be in his mission, you must be picked. You must be selected. You must have earned the grace to be in his mission. This is serious. Is that me? Who's doing this? Okay. Is that better? Okay. Sarah. Let's go. Okay, I'll hold it up here. See, this is his Leela, right? He said, some of you may be wondering, how do you talk to Swami? Do you wonder that? Yeah? How many of you can speak to Swami and hear him? Raise your hands. Yeah. Right? Would all of us like to do that? And one of the first things he says is to be quiet. There's 4 steps. First step is to be quiet. 80% of the noise comes from not being so quiet. This chord is a reminder of me that I have to be quiet. Then you can first take that step. Right? Be quiet. And then breathe. He says, second step is to breathe. Not breathe from up here. Or breathe from down here, right? Meditate. But learn to breathe. How many of us, let's tune into Swami. Let's do it right now. Let's tune into Swami. Everybody sit comfortable. Here's a trick I learned. If you want to tune into Swami, this works for me. So today I'm here transparently just telling you about what I do. Okay? Is that a good deal? Okay? So here's how I tune into Swami. I put my hand on my heart. Try this out with me. Close your eyes. And just remember that person that touches you. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's your mother. Maybe it's your child. A friend. Swami. Someone who you have felt so loved by. Complete selfless love. Just let that love come. Remember the moment with that person. How loving it was. How joyful. Let that love just simply expand. Keep remembering that moment. And now breathe deeply from your abdomen. In and out. In and out. One more. In and out. Spread that love and imagine the same love and you're speaking to Swami. It's the same love from Swami. Nothing different. And go ahead and ask Swami any question you like. Anything on your mind. and simply listen and trust His answer. Take a deep breath and come back and open your eyes. Do you feel Swami? Yeah? Some of you will. Some of you did. I can see tears in your eyes. Swami's love isn't any different than the same love that we feel when we hold our child in our hands. It's the same love that you felt from your father and mother. Nothing different. You don't have to think of Swami in a Puttaparthi. He's not there. He's here. How many of you have been devotees of Swami for less than 5 years? Yeah. How many of you for more than 5 years? How many of you more than 10 years? 20? More than 30? Many of you. Yeah? He's not there. He's always with us. He reminded me when I was once with him, I asked him, Swami, what is the message I can bring back to our devotees in Farmington, where I belong to, for Shanti Center, as Brother Sundar said. And he said, tell them I'm always there. I'm always there. It is easy to love God when you have touched Him, when you have felt Him, when you have seen Him. And we forget when we come back, as soon as we leave Prashanti Nilayam, and that same love we have is gone, isn't it? Something happens. We know this truth that we are here on the Olympic journey, last run. We've been given this opportunity. The Divine Avatar is with us. We know He's God. We know He's love. But something happens and we forget. He tells us we are embodiments of love. And we forget. He calls us Prema Swarupa Lala. The embodiment of love. Right? He calls us our nature. Something happens. Do you wonder why that is? We know all of this. You've been reading for 5, 10, 20 years. But why is it that when He says, you are God, we don't believe it? We don't feel that. We don't constantly feel that. Do you wonder that? Aren't you tired of reading so many books and so many teachings of Swami? To the point where you might say, Swami, you say one thing over here and another thing over here. I don't understand. Have you gone through that process? Yeah? Does that make sense? Swami, what do you mean by that? You mean love is more important, but then over here you're telling me non-violence and truth is more important. But the only thing to do is this, and then you tell me over here, only thing to do is this. Wait a minute. Right? Have you gone through that process? Yeah? By the way, He's been saying this for generations. Not only this avatar, the Shirdi avatar, but even when Krishna and Rama was there, it's the same thing He's been saying over and over and over again. And something doesn't jive. Something doesn't happen. So as Brother Sundar said, Swami is through so many wonderful experiences and so many loving saints and sages in my life and our family's life. Somehow or the other, He's put me on this journey to share my journey with you. And that is what Sundar was saying earlier, is a workshop that we call Deep Awareness. Deep Awareness. So when you heard of deep awareness, what does that mean to you? What does deep awareness mean? What does awareness mean? Wake up. Wake up. What else? Knowing He's around us. Aware that He's with us. Aware that He's sitting here. How many of us actually, I don't need the answer, can actually feel Swami sitting right here with us right now? How many of us can actually? How many of us go to sleep at night crying for Swami so our pillow becomes completely wet because we love Him so much? And that we're aware that He's with us in all the thick and thin of the misery that we go through in our daily lives. Even though He says He's with us. How many of us actually feel that awareness? It's very difficult, isn't it? Right? So something is protecting us, or something is preventing us, I should say, from actually being aware of who we are. And where do you think that is? Is it outside of us, or is it inside of us that's preventing us from knowing that fact? Huh?
Inside.
It's inside. Right? So we have to go through a journey of knowing the outside, knowing Swami, and seeing Swami and His teachings from outside. So eventually, He then tells us, and we finally understand that all you have to do is awaken myself from inside. Right? The love that you felt when you put your hand on your heart is that same Swami. It's not any different. Very easy technique. Call Swami right here. He's immediately going to be there. I mentioned 4 steps to tuning into Swami. First was what?
Be quiet.
Be quiet. Right? So remember, if you talk, you're not going to tune into Swami. So that's about 99% of the day. For many of us, and if you're like me, I have 3 kids, it's 110% of the day. Especially when I get home. Right? Second step is to breathe. Right? You don't have to say any mantras, just breathe. And what do you breathe? Simple, so hum. If you just do so hum, you will achieve liberation. That's it. To do so hum, you'll have to be quiet. And if you tune into your breath, which is the conscious energy, the consciousness energy, the energy, the breathing that we do is God, Swami says. So by breathing in and tuning into just so hum, you don't have to do anything else. Third step, after you breathe, is to allow. Allow. Allow Swami to come. And fourth is trust that He will come. Trust that He will speak to you. Trust that He will answer you. Trust that He's there. Don't have any doubt. If you do those 4 things, you can tune into Swami right away. Awareness is to be able to tune into Swami right away as a first step. So what I wanted to share with you is glimpses of a full 2-day workshop. Would you like me to share some of that? Would you like to do that? Now we have a workshop, I think, in Manhattan coming up soon. Yeah. March 6th, I believe. I'm not sure if it's full or not, but if some of you are interested, you can come there. I'm not sure where it is, but we can find out. But this is glimpses of that. And so Swami has given me this idea that first step to be aware, first step towards really hearing and speaking to Swami all the time is to be first aware. Right? And the deep awareness is taking away all those barriers that we have that's preventing us from knowing what He's been telling us and practicing. So we move to the next slide. So the program is something that goes something like this. The answers are, who am I? We contemplated these questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What is my journey? What is real and what is unreal? All these questions. Do you wonder? Do you ask? Can you see this okay? I know I'm kind of in the middle for some of you. I don't want to... Yeah? Okay. So the program is trying to help us bring out the answers, these questions, and the answers from within. Not me giving answers, it's answers that have to come from within. It is simply reawakening our higher self inside. Right? But we call it a workshop because it's fun, it's interactive, it's lively, it's lots of discussions, and through conversations we learn a lot of these answers. So it's not a study circle per se, but it's a fun event to have a good conversation. And what we do, the next slide, in it is what I have been fortunate able to do is to take so many teachings from Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, and of course Swami's teachings, and other saints and sages like Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Vivekananda, all the teachings of many other wonderful sages and saints. I've taken over 20, I first went to see Swami in 1978. First introduced to Swami as a concept in this body in 1975. Went to Swami in 78 in the summer course. And so since summer course I've been studying Swami's as much as I can, reading. And I went through the same process as you do. I don't read much from Swami's literature anymore, to be honest with you. Because for me, whatever needs to be found needs to be practiced, and less about reading. So for me, last 10 years has all been about practicing. Even one thing, simple, as much as I can. So I'm at that stage of my journey after 25 years of slapping from Swami. And so through that process, I am a businessman, so PowerPoints are natural, right? I have to put some pictures, so I figured I'd share some pictures with you, and maybe some of this stuff makes sense. And as I mentioned, all these 20-some-odd years, maybe decades and maybe lifetimes of the vasanas and gunas that have been parted on the soul, I compiled a simple pictures to help us understand really why we struggle so much with understanding Swami's teachings and what's preventing us from practicing. Okay? The program is in 3 modules. First is understanding our spirituality. What is our spirituality? If I asked you what is the definition of spirituality, all of you would have different answers. If you went and took an MBA course, you pretty much know what the curriculum is going to be. There's not going to be too much scientific conversations or arguments. If you want to pursue this career or this field, you pretty much know. But if I ask you what is spirituality, all of you will have different agreements or different definitions. So spirituality, depending on where you are in the journey, means something else. My definition of spirituality was very different 10 years ago than it is today. Okay, and it will be for you, and it shall be for you. That is what's called movement to Swami's. Right? Swami's biggest gift for me has been my personal transformation. Not seeing him in person necessarily. Not touching his feet, although that of course has helped. But my biggest miraculous gift that he has given me is my personal transformation. It is the same with you, isn't it? It's not the rings and the jewelry and the vibhuti. That's not why people go. Or they might go, but that's not why they stay. The biggest gift that he has given you and chosen you is to transform you and accelerate your journey to where you've come from. So foundation of spirituality, just like taking, we have to get clear on what is spirituality. So this is module 1. Module 2 is some pictures, some ideas to think about, that puts some logic behind what Swami's teaching us in a simple way, which I'll share some with you. And then module 3 is actually practicing things. So for example, there are all sorts of practices. We have 9+ practices. There's all sorts of tools and the things that we can actually hold on to, and like I mentioned, tuning into Swami, it's a 4-step process. That would be a very simple thing for us to try. There's many such teachings Swami has given. I've taken essence of some of the best ones and put it together so we can practice in a workshop. So let's go to the next slide. Let me share with you one of them called the Golden Triangle. Have you heard of this Golden Triangle? Anybody? Yeah? Then is a limbic system, mind management, and guna management. These are 4 actual frameworks all Swami's teachings, all Swami has said so much about, but I'm putting it in a language that maybe is easier for us to understand. Okay? So let's start with Golden Triangle. I asked earlier, what is awareness? This is what Swami says, isn't he? What is awareness? He says, total understanding is awareness. Simple. Total understanding is awareness. So the whole idea is understand, well, what is total understanding then? If I simply have to be aware, all I need to do is really understand what Swami says about total understanding. So let's take a look at what he says about total understanding. He says, you must know answers to these questions. Who is God? Who am I? What's the purpose of life? What is this creation? And why does the universe exist? When you can answer these 5 questions, you're now starting to understand awareness. That you're self-aware. Remember, awareness is a journey back to where we came from. Swami asked a student, what is the purpose of life? And of course, if you've been around Swami long enough, you don't answer. Right? Have some of you had that experience? Right? Generally, the answer you give will not be what he's looking for. He's put some answer in you because he wants you to be the dummy in the crowd. So you say something. And the purpose of life, he said, after going through this fun at one of the Play Vrindavan sessions with students, he said, finally, he said, is to go back to where you came from. Right? Go back to where we came from. It sounds logical. So what does that mean? Where did we come from? And why am I here? And who sent me here? All those would be natural questions, right? So total understanding is to understand the path between where you came from and what journey back you are on. Right? 4 things. That we have a cosmic origin. We have a cosmic origin. Second, that we have a cosmic connection. Right? Third, we have a cosmic responsibility while we are here. And third, like it or not, you have cosmic destiny. You're going back. There's absolutely no doubt that any of you in the room will be stuck here. We're all going back. It all simply depends on how fast you want to go back. You're going back. So rest assured, today you can leave this room and maybe enjoy a nice Diet Coke and some samosas afterwards. Life's done. We're going back. Why do we have to work? It's guaranteed. Swami says you're going back. Even if you don't know him, you're going back. So we have cosmic origin, we have cosmic connection, we have cosmic responsibility, and we have cosmic destiny. That's total understanding. First step. And then you can answer these questions. So let's move on to the next. And when you understand all of this, that you have the purpose of life is to have these cosmic settings and to finally unite with Swami. Let's go back. And by the way, when I say Swami, the way you would hear it, in itself is a problem. Because as soon as you say, I'm going back to Swami, what did you just do? You're living in duality, isn't it? Swami and me are separate. It's a language problem, and therefore awareness limitation. As soon as you put words, any words, in here without spoken about you and Swami, you're slowing down your journey. You're not accelerating. Because you're still living in duality. Okay? It's hard to process. It's hard to understand. So, everything is God. Remember that. I'll give you a nice story. And we have until what time? 4 o'clock? Okay. Everybody okay till 4? So remember that everything is God, in other words. Imagine that this wall here is a big wall. Okay? And who built that wall is the Creator. So there's a creation and there's a Creator. The creation lives within and by and in the Creator. According to Vedas, the creation can go away or it can be created. But the Creator still exists even though creation does not exist. Right? So Upanishad says this very well. So in other words, the creation was created. And if you read the Rig Veda and you read some of the other Upanishads, it actually gives you how many lifetime of years of when Brahma is awake, how many years that is. It's in crores of years. When Brahma goes to sleep, the creation goes away. And that's one day. I won't go into all of that right now. Okay? So creation and Creator, and while we are in creation, it's hard to understand the Creator. If you ask a fish at the bottom of the ocean what the truth is, the fish will say, oh, it's this nice cold water. And the fish that's living here is the truth. To that fish, 1,000 feet below the ocean, the truth is the habitat that it lives in, isn't it? If you ask that fish, does sky exist? What would he say, or she? No. Does that mean it doesn't exist? No. Right? It's like that with us. If another fish came, like a whale, on the top of the ocean, and goes in the ocean, but also comes back out, and ask that fish, does land exist? What would he say?
Yes.
Maybe. Probably not. Doesn't live on land. Although you ask turtle, who goes in the water and comes back out on the land, of course land exists. It's the same thing with us. 1,000 lifetimes ago, we probably were not able to understand that there's a such thing as a human life. We're the 1.2 billion species on Earth, and we are one of them. And Swami says the cosmic footprint of divine is in 3 places. The cosmic footprint, in other words, the signature of the divine is in 3 places. And this is total understanding. 1, that is in every atom of the creation. Even the rock, Swami says, has consciousness, has the divine footprint. Right? Second, it exists in all living beings, which gives us the life force. That's the second signature. And third, he specially gave the knowledge and wisdom of God in only man, he said. That's the third signature. So those that cannot find that, where does God exist, simply look at these 3 places and you'll see that without that divine energy, you can look at these 3 things and you'll be able to find the truth in the answer. We won't get into a lot of the details today. Someone, a long time ago, there was a student by name of Venkatesh Prasad, Swami student. He had been called by Swami. Swami told him to come. This is in Trey Vrindavan in Bangalore. He said, you come, I will see you this afternoon. So Venkatesh was very pleased. He came. And in Trey Vrindavan, you sit outside, right near Swami's residence. And anyone who has to see Swami will usually wait there. And the rule is, if you sit near Swami's residence, you don't speak. You sit on the ground until Swami calls you, or he comes out, or he sends for you. Yeah? You don't speak. Speaking is not allowed. So this nice young man, student, came and sat down. And there was this old devotee of Swami. Old devotee. Swami lovingly called him his Hanuman. So this devotee also comes and sits next to Venkatesh. And Venkatesh is sitting there, and he's so excited to have been sat with this divine, so close devotee of Swami. Very old, been with Swami for a long time. But the rule is not to speak. So they're sitting there, and Hanuman turns over to this young man and says, "Hey, do you know how Swami knows everything?" So Venkatesh, of course, is intrigued, but he's not going to say anything. So he politely just looks at him and ignores him, sits in the silence with his eyes closed in meditative pose, and doesn't answer the loving Hanuman. And so the devotee turns over. Of course, he's very experienced with Swami. So he hits him hard. So Venkatesh nudges. He said, "Hey, I asked you a question. How does Swami know everything? Do you know?" And he just smiles and says, "You know, he looks at the sky and kind of says, he knows it. He's God." He doesn't say a word. Finally, he hits him again. "Hey, don't you have tongue? You can't speak?" And he starts yelling at him. And of course, he's Hanuman. He can do whatever. But Venkatesh knows that's not the rule. And of course, Swami would not approve of him speaking. So he leans over and says, "Sir, I apologize, but I don't know." He says, "Do you want to know what Swami told me?" He says, "Yes, yes." So he lovingly listens. He says, "Swami one day asked me the same question. And I didn't know. And he said that, do you remember that picture of Vishnu with 10 heads or so? And in it, there's a cow in the belly. And there's inside the cow, there's the entire creation. And there's entire earth. And everything is in this picture of Vishnu." He says, "See, that man or that person who drew up this picture knows the answer." He says it's like an ant. He says he comes and bites you. And if it bit Vishnu, he would know it in this picture. In other words, everything in the creation is inside the Creator. We are like that. Everything we do, we are that little ant. Every thought we have, every words we speak, every individual we interact with is his choice, and he knows. That's how he knows. We are part of the body of Vishnu, is what he said. Is that a beautiful story? Think of that. That's what this picture represents. Okay, let's go on to the next. Next. Okay, so the golden triangle. Okay? So here's a simple way of thinking about Swami's teachings. First, I mentioned there's God. Right? There's God. And that in itself is a wonderful workshop topic, because it's so easy to say there's Swami is God. Right? Isn't it? Swami is God. Swami's with us. God gives us food. God gives us energy. God gives us money. God gives us cars. We have children because of God. We are happy because of God. Blah, 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 blah. So it's easy to sort of verbalize, to experience the devotion for Him. It's quite different. Now, Swami has put together this triangle, next, and he says that God created the creation. And in creation, He created man, society, and nature. Okay? And society is part of nature. Society is not different from nature, but it lives in nature. So Swami created, if you will, nature as well as living beings like man. And for simple purpose of our conversation, I've only put man there. But think of all living beings there. But specifically, it's about our journey, so I put man there. And let's see what happens to this triangle. When this triangle is balanced, we are good. But all of our misery starts as soon as this triangle gets out of whack. It fractures. All of our problems start. Okay, so remember these three things. There's God, the Creator, the cosmic energy, the source, the divine light, whatever you want to call it. There's something that created the creation. We are part of that creation. And in the creation exists nature. Nature is part of Earth, and so is all the other planets and all the other cosmos and the cosmic galaxies in the world. That's part of the right side of the triangle. And then there's man who lives in society and nature. And society, by the way, evolves. Society 5,000 years ago was quite different than society today. They didn't have Walmart then. So man actually creates and evolves society in nature. Now the question is, does he do it in harmony with nature or not, is a different question. But society is something man creates within nature to either help or hurt nature. And Swami talks about all of this. Yeah? So simple thing is, you need to keep this balance of the three. Now here's what happens when we get into trouble. Swami also says that there's a relationship between creator and creation. He said, Vyasti is man, Samasti is society, Shristi is nature, and Parameshti is God. Swami talked for almost 2-3 weeks on this concept many years ago. If you want to just go to Swami's website, sathya.org, and type in a few of these words, you're going to see lectures and lectures and lectures. And Swami has specifically said that this is a limbic connection. That we are directly connected to society, which is connected to nature, and to God. That's sort of like our fingers. Right? Fingers are connected to our palm, to our hand, and to our body. So would this finger hurt this body? Would this finger hurt this arm? No. Would it? No. There's something inside of us that tells us no. There's an operating system within us, in this body, that says this hand cannot hurt this body or other parts of the body. Right? That Swami is our operating system inside. Same principle is here. Man is directly connected to society. Without that connection, we do not have a connection to nature. But we have forgotten that. And we have forgotten so much that we don't even know what we're doing to our own selves. We are hurting our own selves by not being responsible to our society. So the first step, being a devotee of Swami, is to be responsible and have a cosmic contract with our society. That's why Swami speaks so much about seva. Do you see that point now? Without society and responsibility to our society, the nature will not be taken care of. And without nature, you don't have access to God. And nature is the 5 elements, isn't it? He's spoken so much about that as well. That without, man cannot survive without water. He can live without food for about 10, 20 days. We saw that in Haiti, right? So many cases. But without water, you become dehydrated and you die. At the most you can live is 2-3 days. So some of the stories came out of Haiti was absolutely staggering. But most people cannot survive without water. That's nature. We hurt the nature, we're running out of water. As important as oil has been, in my opinion, water is the next big thing in our world. If we don't take care of our water, we are all going to quickly hurt ourselves. Right? And that's what Swami's been talking about. That's why he put the water project. because the society needs it. So this is a limbic connection. Again, we won't get into it too much, but I'm just showing you how simple Swami has given so many things for us to just simply... So now you don't have to worry about God. In this picture, all you have to do is worry about society. Live in society, make society happy, serve society, have a contract with society. And what does society mean is something that we have to contact about. Right? You go to a Walmart, you go to a Stop and Shop, you go to a local grocery store, and the woman gives you extra $5 back because she counted the change wrong. And we leave. We say, she made an error. You pocket the $5. That's not having a contract with society. Right? That's what Swami talks about. Next. So here's what happens when the triangle gets fractured or it gets out of balance. First of all, the journey from individual to Vyashti, right, to the society is these three triangles. We have a one relationship to Swami, which is called Bhakti Yoga, our devotion for the Lord, right? So we put Swami up there, any other, avatar, God-like entity, whoever you want to put up there, we have a bhakti and devotion. And the path of bhakti, all written in Bhagavad Gita, is all bhakti. Chapter 14 is all Bhakti Yoga. Then we have Karma Yoga, which is also written quite well, and Swami spoke so about it. And that is the relationship to our society and nature. Without Karma Yoga, we cannot live. Without Bhakti Yoga, you cannot understand God. You have to do both. Next. Our problems start when three elements further go through a lot more change. So, first thing that could happen is we have a split personality. We have one relationship to Swami, and we have a different relationship to society, isn't it? So that is a symbol of a devotee who comes here, loves to just sing their heart out, and make sure the altar is perfect, and make sure Swami's flower is put at the seat, and so much love for Swami, and then they walk out and yell and scream at everybody else. They have no sense of seeing Swami in anyone else, other than in his chair. That would be split personality. And our problem starts when we start having these dual relationships. One to Swami, and one to everyone else. Because we don't see Swami. So first thing we got to do is fix that. You can't live like that. If you live like that, it's called split personality. There is a medical term for that, which we won't use. So that's our first problem. Second problem could occur is we live in society, but we keep God far away. So we're very close to society. We want to buy a house. We want to have children. We want them to get education. So you work 3 jobs instead of 1. We want to drive a nice car. And when you get a nice car and a nice house and nice kids, then you want to move to a nice neighborhood. And there's an endless appetite for using society to fulfill our desires. And it never ends. Right? And we keep God at bay because life's good. I got the money, I got the house, I got the kids, everybody's happy, I'm living comfortably, I'm healthy, I don't have to go to doctors, everything's good, I don't need God. And this, there's Jatin, he goes to Farmington Center all the time, I don't know what the heck he does over there, and look how well I'm off than him. And we create a story of keeping God happy, and until we are ready, we keep God. We don't need God. You know people like that? I was like that. We all have been like that. Maybe not this lifetime, the one before. And we've gotten a little smarter. But that's another type of a personality, right? Where we sustain our responsibility and we live comfortably and we're very green. And we're very mindful. And we're very integrated into the right values within our work and everything. But idea of God, idea of creation, idea of cosmic responsibility, all that is a foreign concept. So I'll get to it someday. Maybe. Third, and that's called isosceles triangle. The third is when we love Swami, and I mentioned earlier, but we keep everybody else away. The inverted triangle. So these are the three things that could happen to the triangle. Does this make sense? Isn't it simple? So the whole idea of the triangle is, the golden triangle, is to not have these splits, not have these off balances, and simply to collapse the triangle. That's the purpose of life. That's it. Collapse the triangle. We won't get into a lot of details today. How do you collapse the triangle? That's part of the workshop, right? So let's go on and show a couple more things. The way we would do that is practice lots of things like mind management and guna management. So I'll give you, I'm accelerating very fast just to give you glimpses of the things that you have to come self-aware for. So Swami has given very specific techniques of how not to have split personality, how not to have out of balance triangle, how to collapse the triangle, so on and so forth. Very, very prescriptive. And so easy for us to learn. So every teaching, if I had more time, I would take you through samples of teachings of Swami, that is your favorite teaching, and I would show you that every single teaching fits in that triangle. You can immediately say, oh, that teaching is about that part of the triangle, and the other one is over here. By the way, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yoga all have to be practiced. You cannot easily do Jnana Yoga without going through Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga first. In fact, you cannot do Bhakti Yoga until you really become really good at Karma Yoga. Just from my experience. Not that it says that in Bhagavad Gita. But to me, because we are living in today's world with our vasanas and gunas today from our previous lives, for me, it's easy to be much more mindful of my action. Then connected to Swami's teaching and have love for Swami. And then really become more aware of the deeper awareness and deeper teachings of Swami. That's the path that I have taken. But all three have to practice. By the way, when the two collapses is when the Jnana Yoga. When Swami and society become one is when you are practicing Jnana Yoga. Okay? Okay, let me pause here for a second. I don't want to go too further. Any questions so far?
What is mindfulness?
What is what?
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness is being aware, knowing that we are part of the creation and that everyone else is also created by Swami. Or Swami is within them, the fingerprints, 3 fingerprints. Is mindful that we cannot just simply treat people differently or treat creation differently, treat nature differently, that we have responsibility to society versus mindful of these teachings. Any other questions? Okay, let me show you one more slide and then we'll take some Q&A, okay? Mind management is a term that I coined up because Swami says the biggest problem we have is our monkey mind, isn't it? Swami said, to know God is to study mankind, isn't it? I always wonder what that meant. What does that mean? Well, basically it's learning the intricacies of the mind. How the mind operates, for me. So let me show you some slides about practicing some teachings. So by the way, Swami one day, actually, I'll give you a nice little story. We're sitting in with all the boys in Trevringavan, and he asked this question, what is the teaching of Bhagavad Gita? He asked the boys, what is the main teaching of Bhagavad Gita? So of course, as usual, the boys are jumping, because for boys it's very easy. They love to have a conversation and actually get response from Swami. So everybody's throwing out ideas, and of course everyone's answers are wrong. So Swami says, what is the first word of the first verse of Bhagavad Gita? Does anybody know? First word of the first verse of chapter 1.
This is Arjuna. That was
No, Sanskrit word. Dharma, right? What is the last word of the last verse of Bhagavad Gita? Mama. He says that is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Mama Dharma. To live by Mama Dharma. And then he narrated what Mama Dharma means. He basically gave a whole lecture on Bhagavad Gita in a split second. It's beautiful, beautiful, written up on that. I had an opportunity to listen to some people who actually were in that session. And so I've taken that teaching, Swami's message, to the boys and sort of created a bunch of practices that Swami's doing. You know, and mind management is one of them. So managing your mind is very, very important. Let's go on to the next one. No, I think we skipped that. Is there one slide? Excuse me. No, slide's not there. Anyways, mind management is where we have to learn what Swami's talked about in our mind. He talks about 3 types of minds, 3 types of bodies as well as 3 types of minds. And he's gone into so much detail about mind management, or mind, how to manage the mind. And he's spoken greatly about, well, our mind first has to be controlled by our senses. The senses is our biggest problems. Inside the senses are created the sense organs inside. They actually connect to the middle mind. So there's an upper mind, middle mind, and lower mind. Lower mind is all of our memory from this life, all of our experiences. Middle mind is the gateway to either upper mind or lower mind. If you can control the middle mind, you can have access to the Swami's voice. Because what happens is all of our senses simply puts the memory into the lower mind. The lower mind only cares about this body, Jatin. That's it. The lower mind only wants to preserve this body. It has no concept of the higher mind. But all of our experiences are put in the lower mind. The middle mind says, oh, I know, I like that apple. Let me see if the lower mind approves of apple, because it's ate before. Oh yeah, you like the apple. And it gives the information back to the middle mind and serves the senses. So senses go to the middle mind all the time and simply go down to see if the answer exists. And if the answer exists, it gives it to them and goes back to the senses. So we simply create this process between senses, the sense organs, the middle mind, and the lower mind. The lower mind, therefore, and the middle mind become very good pals. And they become habitual. They become best friends. And they forget about the higher mind because in order to get to the higher mind, it hasn't developed the muscle. It doesn't know how to go to the higher mind because it takes too long. It has no experience with it. So it keeps going to the lower mind because all the answer seems to be there every time. And it's fast. And so eventually, they become 2 friends, the lower and the middle mind, and that is what is called ego, the lower self. And the ego now becomes really good at responding to anything we want outside. So the senses and the ego starts talking to each other very fast. And guess what happens? What happens? We get a car, we get a house, and we start all of our miseries. And so the purpose of mind management is to stop that loop. This little loop that's going back and forth is to stop that. And Swami's given very wonderful prescriptions on how do you take the middle mind and go up and get the answer instead of going down and get the answer. And he's talked very specifically about what is in our way of going to the mind. And what do you think it is? Because you all want to know, right? What do you think it is? So imagine there's a dam with the water on the other side of the dam. Okay? And then there's a bed of river here, and it's just rocks. Because the water is not flowing through the dam. And if you're about a mile away from the dam and you look at the bed of rocks on the river, and you would say, oh, there's no water here. This river has no water. What you don't know is that there's plenty of water on the other side of the dam. Well, that's sort of like middle mind saying there's no water here. There's no consciousness. There is no God. There is no Swami talking. Because you don't see the water flowing. You don't see God's voice flowing down to the middle mind. So the middle mind simply does his action as if their water doesn't exist. What we have to do is open the gates of the dam to let the water flow. And what are those gates? What are the locks that's keeping those gates closed? That's Swami says. There's 5 of them. 6, whatever you want to call it. What do you think they are? It's our pride, our ego, okay? Lust, lobha, karma, etc. There's those 6 enemies that Swami talks about. They have locked up the flow of the dam, i.e. preventing us from the purity that we need to open those gates. So he says, develop purity of mind, and those 5 things will open up. And by the way, he says, you don't have to open up all 5. Just open up 1. Then the other 5 will get loose, or 4 will get loose. So much detail as he's provided us. In workshop, we would take you through all of these thinking and show you how to do this step by step in practice. This is what I'm doing. Taking Swami's teaching in a simple way through these concepts. As soon as the flow comes, that is like going to the higher mind and getting answers. Tuning in quickly. You should be able to, Swami's holding your hand, should be able to simply do everything and ask everything to Swami. Nothing is boring to Swami. Nothing. Swami, what should I eat? Pancakes. Okay, let's eat pancakes. Swami, what should I have? Oatmeal. Swami, how do I lose weight? I'll give you the answer. There's nothing you cannot ask Swami. Swami, should I take a vacation? Swami, should I take this job? Swami, should I change the home? Swami, shall I go to India and see my parents? There's nothing you cannot ask Swami if you open those gates. The flow will come. You must have faith. It's easiest to practice this with him holding your hands. And you've been given this opportunity to finally open those gates. He's waiting to let that water flow. And you don't have to go to Prashanti Marga for that. It has been a wonderful journey for me, and I feel like I've taken a small little step of the first step of the 100 yet to be taken in my personal journey. There's a lot to be done still. But I know that he's holding my hand. I know that he wants me to go back to him. I know that he will move mountains for me to run to him. Because that's who he sees in me, as all compassionate love. Right? So let me leave you with a few things, 5 things, that I hope you practice. If you live in these 5 things, you'll be fine. 1, Swami says, you're not Jatin. Relative point, I'm Jatin. 2nd, you're God. You're divine. You're a pure soul. You are me. Don't forget that. Third, he says, treat all your relationships with equanimity. Don't treat one person in your family differently than another. Don't treat the person at the grocery aisle different than the one person at home. Treat all of your relationships with equanimity. Right? Fourth, know that you're going back. Have faith. And lastly, I'm here to help. He's here. He's here with us all the time. We may not get this opportunity ever again for millions of lives that we've lived. So thank you for allowing me to be with you. Thank you for allowing me to feel the love of Swami through you all, your eyes, your hearts, your attention.
So, Jatin, on our behalf, thank you for that very inspiring talk. As a small token of our love, I request Brother Dayabaran to give Brother Jatin a small souvenir. Sai Ram.